obviously it's a question on a lot of people's lips at the moment. Climate change. I mean, you've talked about irrigating the desert. I mean, look, deserts are actually very good places to grow things because you can control a lot of your pest and disease very easily there. But what has climate change done to production in Egypt? Over the last 10, 15 years?
It has done to the entire world, Nick. That's why the climate technology also is a very important part. We can see technology in all the aspects, especially technology, and the technology in the greenhouses as well to control the climate for the crop. So that's a very good point that we can use in Egypt as well.
Okay. Yeah, and I think one of the points that we touched on earlier is women in agribusiness in Egypt as well. I think it's a point close to your heart, so I then wanted to bring that up.
This is one of the biggest challenges that I've seen actually.
Narana and I were discussing earlier, and she mentioned really there are very, very few women in agribusiness, so I mean it's fantastic to have you on the panel and representing. So tell us a little bit more about that. What the work that you're doing there as well, which is so fantastic.
I've been in this industry for years, and I've been working in companies before, and I've seen that there are no females in this industry, especially company owners. But I met someone, if you know Malak from Jordan, she's the owner of Golden Wheat. She's the one who encouraged me to take the step and have my own company. And with the help of my marketing partner, Mrs. Maha Dahab, she's the owner of DHB agency. She also helped me to work very well on my company. And thankfully I'm here and it's working well, alhamdulillah.
Fantastic.
We have this woman in sugar.
I know, I was telling Narana about
I
that.
was trying to find you one.
We're going to get her on.
We're going to work on that.
Yes. Okay, well, I think let's open up to the floor now if there's any questions that you might have for the panel. So please, if you could ask your questions and we'll go from there. No questions at all?
Last conference in Geneva, by the way, we had a screen at the back with questions for all the panelists. I found all the questions for Egypt, and I was really surprised at what's going on in my country that I don't know.
Any questions at all? Come on, Shirley. Yes, this gentleman over here. So we can just introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Augustine Kedisel. I'm from Ghana.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for the wonderful discussion. I've learned a lot. Talking of trade flows, I'm just wondering, and sorry, the question is going to Egypt. Just feel free to chime in. Talking of trade flows, there's a development on the continent now, which is the coming into force of the Continental Agreement, the AFCFTA. I'm just wondering how that factors in terms of your plans and projections for the future. Because apart from population growth, the rules of trade are going to change on the continent. And if you take a country like Ghana, we import wheat from Canada. Canada, I think that's the biggest source. From Ukraine, Russia as well, but also import from Cote d'Ivoire and Nigeria, who are basically our neighbors. So I'm wondering, your projections, how do you think the change in trade routes is going to impact trade flows? Do you see more African countries focusing on building local capacity, not just for the country, but able to trade amongst the countries on the continent? And I think maybe this should also go to sugar as well. So if there are any ideas?
After you, Nuran.
So from my side, I can see because we have to look for other origins. So we might, of course, look at other countries, especially in Africa. But on the other hand, because we have this agreement with Russia and the BRICS, we will still be focusing on the Black Sea. No way we can change this, even at least for the near future. But most probably we can look into the African market.
Well, I think, it's for Augustine's questions. It's a good one. The free continental trade, the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement it's been in the works for a while. I sit in East Africa.
This is something we need to discuss also because yes, with the GASC and with the government, because we have a link also when we usually meet. This is something we can bring on the table because.
The long and short of it also is that a lot of you know, the agricultural land that is unused, that is left, is on the African continent. I think it's something like 60% of global African, you know, agricultural land is.
One of the foreign investments might be that foreign country can come and invest in our country when it comes to agriculture.
Correct. The thing, you know, also that worries me is, you know, I sit in Kenya, I trade all around the region, and the Kenyans won't talk to the Tanzanians won't talk to the Ugandans. Museveni's coming down to talk to, you know, William Ruto. They're trying to do, you know, deals for sugar over the border, milk, you know, and they still can't agree. And I think people are being, you know, a lot of nations on the continent are being way too nationalistic, and it's going to take a superhuman effort to get this thing over the line. But ultimately, I think it's going to have to happen, and it will completely redefine the way that trade, you know, will happen, I think, all over the world, especially, you know, on the continent, because of the population growth. So it's going to have to come. So that's great.
I think just to add to on the sugar side, I think most important is also we have to look at the cost of production which the countries are going to look at things. I mean, it just doesn't about the trade flows. I mean, we look at India as becoming one of the most expensive players of production of when it comes to wheat, rice. Now, as the government keep increasing the price for self-sufficiency, you have an incremental values in coming in, and that's bringing in inflation as well. So I mean, you know, technically it's just not about which region can produce what.
Yeah, it's
also about what is
competitive
the cost of production. I mean, if Egypt wants to produce wheat at say $500 to reach 30 million on self-sufficiency, whereas a Russian can double it up at $200. I mean, you have to believe in the Ricardo theory at certain point of time that, you know, the most cost-effective region needs to produce the most best product for the world. I mean, at the end, we all are one citizen. I mean, you know, look. We may have borders around, but I mean, the Ugandan may not talk to the Ghanaian, and the Sudanese and Indians won't talk to Pakistanis, for example. But at the end of the day, if Pakistan can produce the cheapest rice in the world, I mean, it should produce the rice for the world rather than talking about self-sufficiency. I think we all need to have that. Rather than the trade flow, the balancing act should have been more about finding out which is the most effective region for production of which commodity. And then, I wouldn't call it as weaponizing of the trade flow by any standard, but I mean, we need to also, as one world, start to look at this theory. If you are going to go to 10 billion people in the next 15 years without India's contribution.
It happened in Europe, right? We had so many wars during the past. The only thing that we do to get to war, right? It's British against French against everybody against everybody. And then after 4,000 years of history, of fights, finally Germany and France agreed, okay, let's not fight anymore. Let's build up this European Union, which was kind of, many were skeptical about that, but check it now, you know, it worked.
Yes,
but after so much pain, you know, I think
we
more pain will come.
The African continent has to go through that pain before it's going to work.
That would be more of a political development rather than something like which we would wish for. But then if the politics come into the role and they look out at from a broader and a macroscopic view, that is something they should be focusing on.
Any more questions? Come on, guys, you got some of the best commodity people in the world. You must have some burning questions. Okay,
Nick, I have a question.
Yeah. Okay, go on then. No, I'll get a question.
You have to give us the what's happening in Africa on sugar side, because that's the puzzle which nobody knows, because Djibouti has so much of stocks.
Yeah.
There is production which is increasing somewhere in Africa, which is doing the Comeska trading.
Yeah.
And as you say, consumption is rising, but we are still not seeing it.
Yeah.
I mean, some puzzles are still it's not resolved.
Oh, and okay, this brings me perfectly into the question I was going to or the comment I was going to make is liquidity, and Naran, you touched on this, dollar liquidity. There's no dollars anywhere right now. It's an absolute mess. Okay, everyone's like, there's dollars being printed everywhere, but they're not going into circulation. Right? They just don't hit those markets. So if you take one of the big consumptive markets, Ethiopia, for example, 135 million people today. Rahil, you touched on that in Djibouti. You know, what's going on in Djibouti? Djibouti being the main gateway for any, you know, agri product, any product into Ethiopia.